Thanks. Great. Okay, we'll begin. I'm just going to share the screen so you can actually see what we're going to work on today. All right. So can you see my screen here?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, so this is one of the tables that you might see on the IELTS test. Of course,
Okay.
they all be different, depends on which test you on the day. Every time they're different. So as we previously said in other classes, this kind of data, these percentages, might be displayed in various ways. Sometimes they can be displayed in a bar chart, or sometimes they can be displayed in a pie chart. The format depends. It can vary from test to test, but the approach is essentially the same. It doesn't matter what format this information is presented in. The way that you approach the answer, writing the answer is the same, basically. Okay. Probably the exception to this would be the line graph. Sometimes you may have a line graph. Obviously, that involves different language, different style, and also maps. You may have a map that you need to analyze. Again, that would involve probably a different kind of language and style. But in terms of graphs and charts, line graph, pie chart, and a chart like this, table, they're very similar. So I'll sort of go through it the way that I would approach it. Okay. And the first thing that I would do is obviously read the heading. Okay, so the table below gives information on consumer spending. We will highlight the keywords. Okay, really the keyword here is consumer spending. Perhaps we can highlight different items, 5 countries, 2002. So those are our keywords. That's what this information is telling us. Your job is to summarize this information by selecting and reporting the main features. Okay, so this is the key. This is a keyword, key point, main features. Do not, well, you cannot talk about everything, all right? You only choose the main things, all right? Now, that's our next job. Okay, next job is, well, our next job is to look at the table, first of all, to get a clearer picture on what the table is showing us, okay? So let's have a look at the table in detail. We heard that it's 5 countries. What are the 5 countries? The countries are Ireland, Italy, Spain, Sweden, and Turkey. Okay, these are the 5 countries that we're talking about today. And what are the items? These are the items: food, drinks, tobacco, clothing and footwear, leisure, and education. So these are the items. So along this side are the items, and down this side are the countries. Yeah. So it's pretty simple. And in the middle are the numbers, the percentages. So we're talking about consumer spending. How much do people in these countries spend on these items? It's pretty simple. Okay. So we can see in Ireland, for example, if we take the first country, that 28.91% of spending is on food, drinks, and tobacco, which is quite high. Because if you look at Italy, it's only 16, and Spain's only 18, and Sweden is 15, but Turkey is 32. So Turkey is the highest. Yeah. So out of all of the 5 countries, Turkey has the highest expenditure or spending on this column. So we're gonna highlight this. We're gonna highlight Turkey here because it's exceptional. It's the highest, right? So the job now is to go through the numbers and find the exceptional things. Okay, the things which jump out at you. Okay, the things which make you go, oh, okay, wow, that's high or that's low. You know. So if we go to the next, I'm also gonna highlight. I'm also going to highlight Ireland because that's exceptionally high. So these two here, both Ireland and Turkey, are definitely the exceptions out of the 5 countries. These ones are only 16, 16, 18, 15%. They're quite similar, whereas these two are much higher. So that's worth discussing. If we go to the next column, what can you see in here? That is clothing and footwear. That's right. So from these percentages, what can you see that is interesting, or a big number or a small number? Or
it's 9.00%.
That's right. So I'm going to highlight this one because it's 9%. So you probably know that, Italians, they love fashion and, dressing well, and Gucci and Prada, Armani and all of these things. So it's not surprising. It's not surprising that Italian people spend the most money on clothing and footwear, right? They obviously love that. But remember, in this kind of answer, we don't give our opinions. We don't talk about that. We don't say why the number is big. I'm just giving you my opinion, but we steer clear of opinions in this. We just talk about the numbers, that's all. Okay. So I'm going to highlight 9 because that's big. But what else can we say? We can say that 6, 5, 6, and 6. These 1, 2, 3, and 4 are basically the same, aren't they? Almost the same. We can maybe say we maybe highlight Sweden because that's 5. That's clearly lower. The other one's a 6, 6, 6. This is 5. So we can definitely say that in Sweden, people spend the least on clothing and footwear. Right. Whereas Ireland, Spain, and Turkey are basically the same. So perhaps we can join these. We can link these together, these 3. And let's go to the last column, which is leisure and education. Leisure and education. What can we say about that? What's interesting?
4.35.
Yes,
Turkey.
That's right. So Turkey's got the highest expenditure on leisure and education, and the lowest is Spain. Yeah, it's clearly much lower. It's only 1, just under 2% there. Okay, good. The other ones, I mean, Ireland's kind of low as well. We might say something about that. These are both almost the same. Okay. So this is the kind of approach that you want to have, guys. You want to basically, first of all, look through the numbers. In this case, it's percentages of expenditure, and choose the things which to you seem interesting, like the high numbers, the low numbers, and the numbers in the middle. What is a good idea sometimes in these kind of things is to group things together. All right, I'm just going to change my color. Like if, for example, maybe we can put these together into a group. Maybe we can put these into a sort of a middle group in the middle, because they're all 6% more or less. Again, maybe we can put these together into the 3% group. So that's something that we can talk about. So, that's the way that I like to approach it, is talk about the highest things, talk about the lowest things. And then if there's something in the middle, can you kind of group them together into a sort of medium or middle group, tends to be a good way to do it. Because like I said, you don't have time to talk about each number individually, one by one in the test. There is no time, there is no space. you have to sometimes group things together in that way. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys, is that clear? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it all right to sometimes the numbers in the middle, is it all right to sometimes leave one or two out of your answer?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely do that. You do not need to include all of them. All right.
Okay.
If it's something that's sort of if it's something that works, was easy to comment on, or it's something that you think is worth commenting on, then do. If it's just one number or two numbers which are kind of just not very interesting or not very exceptional, then don't, you don't need to.
Okay.
You don't need to talk
Okay.
about them. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me just get rid of this. Okay, let's go to the next step. So, oops, sorry guys. Yeah, next step for you guys will be to paraphrase and write your introduction. Okay, so after you've done your analysis, we start with the introduction. So let's go ahead with that. Now, the introduction is simply, as some of you probably already know, is a paraphrase of the question. Okay, not all of the question. I should emphasize this. It's a paraphrase of this part, usually the first sentence. So the table below gives information on consumer spending on different items in 5 different countries in 2002. So that's a long sentence with a lot of sort of clauses and in and on and in and on. Okay, it's long, but what we need to do is paraphrase this, guys. When we talk about paraphrasing, I'm sure you know already, some of you, that means that we have to rewrite the sentence in this same meaning, but with different language, different grammar, different words. Okay, so how are we going to do it? So we're going to keep. Yeah, anybody have a suggestion? Well, you can throw out some suggestions, guys.
Okay, like I might go the table below shows consumer spending in 5 countries in 2002 on different items.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one option. One option is to essentially rearrange the sentence and restructure it and sort of say, put it in a different format. That's what we do. In that case, you put consumer spending, right? So let's maybe change that one to something different. Maybe something like the table below. I like what you said. Shows which items were maybe consumed most, or not consumed. I can say which 5 items were consumed. We don't have to say consume most. It's not really consume most. It's just consumed, because it's not saying most or least, really. Consumed in 2002 in 5 different countries, something like this. So the table below shows which 5 items were consumed in 2002.
We can also we can also write this like in 2002, the 5 countries consumed ratio of consuming the following items are.
You could say, you can say that. I would say percentage instead of ratio, because remember that ratio and percentage are different things. So you could say, the table shows the percentage. Yeah, that's probably a good idea to put that percentage in. I like that. The table shows the percentage of consumer spending, or the percentage of items that were consumed by the general public in 5 countries in 2002. There are many ways that you can rephrase the sentence, and as long as you keep the main points like the date, the number of countries, the number of items, then that's the important thing. As long as you do that and that is grammatically correct, then those are the important things. It doesn't need to be longer or shorter. It just has to contain the main points, right? The other thing I could say is, if you want to, if in some cases you might actually write the name of the countries or the items in the table. You might, so in some cases you might put that into your introduction. Although I would say in this case there's too much to include, so we're going to, for example, you could say the table below shows 5 items, and then you list them off: food, drink, tobacco. You could do it like this, although I think it's too much of it's too long in that case, right, if we do that. But in some questions you'll have fewer things, and you can do that, and it makes sense. But I think in this case it doesn't make sense for us to do that, so we're going to skip it. We have our basically our introduction. Now what comes next?
The overview.
Overview, right. So sorry, it's not 5 items, is it? Just different. Okay. Or instead of different, let's put various. Okay, various items. I don't know why I thought it was 5. I'm getting mixed up. 5 countries. It's not 5 items, is it? Okay. Okay, overview is next. So that was an introduction. Let's go to overview, guys. All right, next. How do we start the overview?
Yeah, we start by reporting on the overall. So we start by reporting on.
That's right. That's right. So you got it. So first we got our introduction, which is very simply a paraphrase of usually the first sentence in the question. Then we have to do an overview. Overview is, well, it's what it says. It's an overview. It's a summary. It's a basic reporting of the general trends in here. We do not mention any specific numbers. Okay, we just say generally what this shows. What can we say generally? Anybody want to?
Yeah, overall, Ireland consumed the highest in terms of food, drinks, and tobacco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would probably be even less specific than that if I was you. Okay.
Okay.
I think when you come to I wouldn't mention any countries probably yet. I would go with like this. So what can we say about, if you look at this column with the numbers in this column, what can we say compared to, for example, compared to the numbers in this column? Generally.
Yeah.
What do you notice? 28, 18, 32, 1, 2, 3. What do you notice about these numbers here?
There is the highest ratio in the first column as compared to the last one.
I would say so. So overall, in every country, right? Or in all countries, food, drinks, and tobacco accounted for the highest spending. Yeah. Whereas, what can we say? Maybe whereas leisure and education. Okay, education was the
The lowest ratio.
Yeah, was the lowest category for consumers to spend on something like this. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the moment in the overview, we're not actually mentioning any of the people or any of the countries or any of the specific things, right? We're just sort of like generally saying, like, if you look at the table, what do you generally notice? You generally sort of overall, you notice that this is the biggest and this is the smallest. If you want to, you could probably put something about clothing and footwear. Also, if you wanted to like, if you need to make a higher word count, you could probably include, clothing and footwear was the middle, category that people spent their money on, right? Or something, if you want to, but I think it's not necessary. So I think we can leave it there for the overview. So overall, in every country, food, drink, and tobacco accounted for the highest spending, whereas leisure and education was the lowest category for consumers to spend on, or the least popular. Maybe we can say least popular category. Maybe I'll change it to that, for example. Okay, so that's our introduction. Very simple, just one sentence. Our overview in this case is one sentence. You can include more in your overview if you want to. You can make it 2 sentences. If you want to talk about the middle category, clothing and footwear, that's okay. As I say, that just means that you have less in your, less time and less probably, fewer words to include in your main body. And obviously the main body is the most important part. Yes, you need the other parts too, introduction and the overview, but the body analysis is the main part. It's the most important thing. Okay, so let's move on to that now. This is where we can start to talk about specifics. We can start to get specific about numbers. So here we have to start talking about specific percentages and specific countries, and we start to compare the countries together. We say which are bigger, which is smaller, which one has more, which one has less, which one, that's at this stage. So let's go back to what we said at the beginning of the class. Maybe some of you guys hadn't joined at this stage, but at the beginning we highlighted the numbers that we were going to focus on. So that was 28, 32 because they were the highest. That was, over here. Somebody's got who's got the chicken in the background there? If you guys can switch your microphones off, that would be very useful. Or maybe I can mute you. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can mute you guys, because I can hear some chicken going on. Bear with me. I can't see you. Hold on a second, guys. Okay, I think that's everybody muted. Okay, cool. So let's carry on. Okay, so this is the bit where we start to talk about specific points, all right? As I said, at the beginning of the lesson, we kind of highlighted like 28 because it's big, 32 is big, 1 is small. In this column, sort of 9 is big compared to the other numbers. So you have to look and talk and decide what you're gonna focus on. So let's start with Turkey, because that's the biggest one here, 32%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to go through the different categories and I'm going to comment on the numbers in each category. It's pretty straightforward, guys. Just think about how it's going to be the most, how is it going to be the most logical for the person who's reading it, the examiner? What's going to be the most logical for them? Okay, like how they're going to understand the information the most logical way. I think the most logical thing is to talk about each one of these in turn and talk about the numbers within each category. So Turkey accounted for the highest spending on food, drinks, and tobacco at 32.14%. This was closely followed by Ireland. Somebody says hello, hello, hello back. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody, by the way. Thanks for coming over to Zoom today. I know we were on Facebook before. We had some issues with Facebook last time. Facebook was not being my friend. It blocked me. So now we're doing the class on Zoom, which I think is better anyway. So this was closely followed by Ireland, where food, drink, and tobacco consumption was 28.91%. Fine. Okay, so then we talk about the highest. The country, oops, let's go with the lowest in this category now, because we talk about highest, let's go lowest. With the lowest consumption in this category, was Sweden at, where's Sweden? Okay, 15.77%. Again, guys, if you want, when you write it, we can talk about Italy and we can talk about Spain as a sort of group. We're going to group them together maybe. I'm going highest, the two highest, and the lowest. Those are the things which I'm commenting on. Okay, I think for me it's enough for that category. Okay, but maybe later we find that we don't have enough words, then we have to come back and add some more and talk about Italy and Spain being in the middle, 16 and 18, something like that. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next category. In terms of clothing and footwear, Italians, and because Italians spent the most on clothes at 9%. And what can we, who is the lowest? Sweden again. Oh dear. And again, the Swedish, so we said Sweden, we could say the Swedish people. The Swedish spent the least, only using up, let's just say only shelling out 5.4% on these items. Then let's group the other ones together now, okay? Let's go with Ireland, Spain, and Turkey. Ireland, people in Ireland, Spain, and Turkey all spent around 6%, right? 6.5% on clothes let's rephrase clothes and shoes instead of clothing and footwear. Remember, guys, let's try not to repeat in 2002. Okay, cool. So that's our first two. Our first two parts. Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily that you have different paragraphs. Like here, we've got one paragraph and we've got two paragraphs. I don't suggest that you necessarily have separate paragraphs. Of course, we can put them together. I'm just trying to make it clear by showing you, that I consider them to be separate things. I'm going through each category one by one. So I want to show how I'm doing that. But, you can make it into one paragraph like this. That's absolutely fine. There's different theories. There's different ideas about how many paragraphs you should have. I think having one paragraph is okay. One body paragraph is fine. Some people like to split it into two. I think that depends on which question you're answering and what would make most sense at that time. Okay, so let's read through this. I always like to sort of read what I've checked, so edit as we go, check it, make sure it makes sense, and then carry on. So Turkey accounted for the highest spending on food, drinks, and tobacco at 32.14%. This was closely followed by Ireland, where food, drink, and tobacco consumption was 28.91%. The country with the lowest consumption in this category was Sweden at 15.77%. In terms of clothing and footwear, Italians spent the most on clothes at 9%, and again, the Swedish spent the least, only shelling out 5.4% on these items. People in Ireland, Spain, and Turkey all spent around 6.5% on clothes and shoes in 2002. Good. Okay. All right, guys. Any questions so far? Anybody? No? Let's carry on in a second. Okay, no questions. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's just finish off. We're almost done. The last thing we need to talk about is leisure and education here, okay? That's our last category, which we're going to move on and talk about now, all right? So let's, what do we say was important in this category? 1.98% important. 4.3% in Turkey is important. Okay, so let's go with again, because again, when I say again, food and drinks and tobacco, Turkish people spend 32.14%, which was the highest. And again, in this category, they spend the highest. So Turkish people spend a lot of money on these things. So again, Turkish people spent the most on leisure and education. I don't need to actually capitalize these. Let's get rid of it. Capital letters. Turkish people spent the most on leisure and education, spending, 4.35% on this in 2002. In the year given, let's just, instead of saying 2002, we said it already here. In the year in question. Okay, let's change it. Let's not repeat 2002. Okay. The country with the lowest spending on this category was, who's spent the lowest? Swedish again, maybe? Spain. Was Spain, where people only spent 1.98%. Okay, let's just leave it there, 1.98%. In Ireland, let's finish with a comment about the other countries on the list. In Ireland, Italy, and Sweden, people's average expenditure on leisure and education was between 2 to 3%. Okay. Cool. Good. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. That's all you need to do. Okay. Once you've done that, you have finished. You don't need to put your opinion. Okay. You don't need to say why Turkey has the highest spending on food and drinks and tobacco. You don't need to say. You don't need to give any opinions about why, or why this happened, or why is this high, or why is this low. You don't need to say anything in this task 1 writing. You just talk about the numbers and then you're finished. And that's it. No opinion, nothing. So you do your introduction, you do your summary, your overview, and then you talk through. And the way that I chose to do it in this case is talk through each category one by one. For me, that's logical. Remember, you always think about the person reading your answer. How are they going to understand this information in the clearest way? For me, the clearest way is to talk about each thing one by one. Otherwise, you get confused and mixed up. It's difficult to follow. And then you choose the data you're going to talk about: high, low, medium. And for me, it's usually best to go high, then low, and then medium. All right. Now, one thing we need to do is check the word count. Let's do that. Let me just stick it in the Google Docs for a second. Remember, guys, how many words does it need to be? It needs to be, is it going to let me do a new? There we go. All right, who knows how many words we need to write? Well, the answer is 150. Okay, so in this task 1, you need to write 150 words. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Computer's going a bit slow. Sorry, guys. Got too many things running. I've still got Facebook running. I've got, Zoom running. I've got, let's see how many words we've got. Okay, so this is our answer. Please, hopefully it's 150. Word count, 183. Okay, so we have written 183. Okay, can you see here? 183 words. In our answer. So that's good. It must be over 150 in the test. Remember, you lose points if you write less than 150. Okay, so we've done it. We've done our introduction, we've done an overview, we've done our body, and we've gone over 150 words. We've talked about the most important things. We've analyzed the data. We've written a good answer. This will get you a 7 or maybe an 8 easily on the test, no problem. Okay. It's a good answer. It's a solid answer. Okay. If you can follow this kind of thing, so when you do the test, you'll get a good score. What we didn't really talk about was the language. And again, maybe we'll do another lesson on language that you need in terms of language for comparing, language for talking about past tenses, in terms of spent, not spent, because it's in the past. It was 2002. So remember, guys, if the information that you're analyzing is in the past, you want to be using past tenses grammatically. That's important too. But there are other things in terms of the language and language variety, which we haven't talked about. We probably talk about another lesson. But I think for now that we'll finish there today. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? No? Okay. In that case, guys, we're gonna finish there. Thanks very much for coming. We're gonna repeat this process next Sunday, same time. So if you'd like to come along to the next lesson next week, you're welcome. We'll maybe look at task 2 next week, the essay question. So if you'd like to come again next week, you know what to do. Just come and join the Zoom room, okay? And we'll do another class, guys, okay? So thanks very much, guys. All right, thank you for coming. Hopefully I'll see you next week. All right, everybody, thank you. Bye-bye.